All right, everybody, welcome back to Knights hockey. Knights taking on St. Albert, 610. St. Albert in deep into the zone center. Pass picked up by Bridges. He chips it forward for Reed. Reed with a bit of speed. He's got one man between him and the net. Fires it off of a lag, though. It's back the other way. St. Albert through the neutral zone. Good hit from Breen. Puck is loose. No one's going to it. Campbell goes into chase after it. St. Albert tipped in front of the net. Loose puck. Bobble bounced, and Brady will jump on it. We'll get a face-off to his left. Sorry, my classical training. I managed not to unmute myself. Hender in the corner there battling for it. He centers it, but it's through his teammates and right to a St. Albert player. St. Albert over center. They'll dump it in on Brady. It's just wide of the net. St. Albert with possession. They're pressured there. Bowman gets bounced off, but puck comes to Kepler. Pardon me, to Hender. Hender centers it for Gal. He pushes it forward, and St. Albert will turn it back the other way. Pushing it into Knights territory and getting a change. Gal with a centering pass. It's out of the reach of Bowman, but he's able to stick it forward. He'll push it into the zone and get a change. Main in deep. He'll challenge. St. Albert will dump it all the way down. That should be icing. Sure is. And we'll bring it back the other way for a face-off. Campbell out to take the draw. We got Main to his right. Jacobs on the left. Lemab and Durecci on defense. Face-off won by Campbell to Durecci. Durecci steps into that one. Deflected off a stick, but not low enough and tight enough to get a shot on net. It rolls all the way to center. Durecci back for it. We're going to get an interference penalty. Yeah, that's what it looks like on the map. And so the face-off will be in Knights territory. And St. Albert will go on the first power play. Campbell will take the draw. It's one into the corner. St. Albert and Durecci in the corner. They're battling for it. St. Albert with the extra man. They come out with the puck. Centered passes off a skate back into the corner. Durecci trying to get there, but St. Albert's to it first. Short side, walking in. No challenge there at the side of the net, and so they're able to walk in and get a shot and then a juicy rebound. So just like that, St. Albert will go up one on the power play. St. Albert with the win on the face-off. They'll push it in deep. Breen there for it, skips away from him, and St. Albert's able to push it out front. Shot to the net, 2 St. Albert players standing all by themselves out front. Knight's able to get in the way there. Correa now with it. He'll push it forward for Reed, who chips it into the neutral zone, but St. Albert's right there. They'll dump it right back in. Breen goes back for it with some space. He's pressured. He'll get it to Bridges. Bridges fans on the dump out, but it looks like it rolls out just far enough, and Kapler's able to get a good stick check. Oh, needed to shoot at that point. Didn't have the pass. Tried to make it, but it was through too much traffic, and St. Albert will come back the other way now. Shot blocked by Bonikoski there, rolls behind the net. Bridges with it. Battling for it there. Bowman nearly stepped in for it, but St. Albert are able to center it. Drop pass into traffic. Bounces off the side of Brady, but the loose puck bounces low, and the rebound skips in short side. And it'll be 2-0 now for St. Albert. Bowman with the win. He's walking forward, rolls off of his stick, and St. Albert will turn it back the other way. There's cross ice pass is missed. It'll be icing. They will whistle it down. So we'll get a face-off back in St. Albert territory. Bowman with the draw. He's got Noonan on his left and Frey on the right. We've got Durecci and Lemab on defense. Lemab goes down, stick to skates, no penalty there. Another drop. It's exactly the same as what happened in the slot. Didn't call it. Maybe an even up call. Shot from Durecci from the point. It's a good shot. No traffic though. Goaltender sees that one all the way and he'll hold on to it. Puck won forward by the Knights. Pressure there from Campbell and Hender. Battle ensuing there. Hender trying to center it for Gal. St. Albert will pick up the loose puck and make a nice centering pass. Maine with an attempt to battle for that puck deep. He got pushed off by the big defenseman. St. Albert back the other way, not for lack of trying. St. Albert walking out. Shot on Brady, but he's ready for it. He'll stop that. We'll get a face-off to his left. Apologies, apparently taking a FaceTime call stops the broadcast. Well, not even answering one, but when you get a FaceTime call, it'll stop things. Knights battling for it at the wall. St. Albert center it. Bridges gives it to Reed. Not quite. Just threw it out instead of carrying it. And St. Albert are able to gain possession again. St. Albert battling, pushing it to the point. Hit coming from Reed there. A little bit of cross-checking happening. Puck into the corner. St. Albert first to it again. Bridges with it this time. He'll step away from a hit, but St. Albert are able to keep it in. Bonikoski with a hit down low. If it was a player any smaller, probably would have been head contact. St. Albert still able to keep it in play. Bridges is able to get enough on it to push it out of the zone, but St. Albert's still in control. They send it right back in deep. And Knights content to dump it down. That'll be icing, even though they could have played the puck at center ice. Thanks, Daly. St. Albert pressing again. Puck through the slot. Goes all the way out of the zone and will come back to the St. Albert blue line. St. Albert transitioning. Good pressure from Noonan. Puck pushed in deep by St. Albert. Correa first to it. He's got pressure both directions. Gives it away. It ends up bouncing in front. No help from his teammates there, except for Brady, who covers up the shot attempts. And he'll hold on for a save for a faceoff.
Do I add two?
Yeah. Campbell wins the draw. St. Albert first to it, centered. Durecci tied up his man in front. No shot. Rolls into the far corner. St. Albert able to walk almost in front of the net. Good late stick there by Correa, and it's a soft shot that Brady's able to corral. He'll get a face-off for us to his right. 6:31 to go here in the first. 2-0 game for St. Albert. Couple of hard-fought goals. One shorthanded, unfortunately, penalty causing the Knights some grief, as they tend to do. Breen behind his own net for Gow. Gow pushes it up to Hender. Rolls off of his stick, and a St. Albert defenseman's able to get a stick on it. Battle for it here at the in the neutral zone. St. Albert pushing back the other way. They'll center it. Stick check from Lemab, but lucky bounces for St. Albert, and they're able to get a shot. Great save from Brady. St. Albert still with possession down low. Centered pass. Picked up, shot into traffic. Kapler to Hender. Hender will dump it in as they make it out of their zone and into St. Albert territory, but St. Albert able to move the puck quickly and then out of the zone. They missed the pass. It was not touched on the right side of the ice. It should have been icing, but waved off nonetheless. Kapler now picks it up loose at the hash marks, carries it into the St. Albert zone. They'll dump it in deep. St. Albert now back the other way, unchallenged in their own zone. Ferris will build some speed, still carrying the puck past the defender. Shot off the goalie's stick. Rebound was a St. Albert player, but just wide of the net. Bowman with it now, wide, tries to give it back to Maine. That would have been a beautiful attempt. Knights able to keep it in though. Bonikoski now across to Bowman. Great pass, shot. Ooh, just wide of the net. Couldn't get a stick to deflect that one. Bonikoski tries to push it deep. St. Albert first to it. With some speed, they'll come back the other way. Ferris again. Lemab tries to push him off. Keeps him wide. Oh, an awful bounce. Up into the air, off the back of the net, off the back of the goaltender. When it rains, it pours. That'll be the third goal for St. Albert. St. Albert come up with it off the face-off after the goal. Pass across for Jacobs is intercepted. St. Albert try to make it past Lamab. He gets a skate on it, but it bounces to another St. Albert player, and they'll dump it in. Correa now back in his own zone. Stick check there, pushes to Jacobs. Tried to center a pass to Bowman, but he was already too far out of the zone. Timing didn't quite work out there. Knights will dump it in deep. Icing was not waved off, so we'll get a whistle and we'll get a face-off back in our own zone, this time to the right of Brady. About 4 minutes to go here in the first. Loose puck through the zone. Spencer takes it and throws it blindly into the middle of the ice. Luckily, this time it bounces off his teammates. And St. Albert back the other way. A good hit there from Breen to separate player from puck. And Breen will carry it over center and send it in. Goalie out to play it. Into the corner. St. Albert first to it. Campbell pressing though. He'll keep it deep off of his shins into the corner and behind the net now. Centered pass for Bridges. It's in his feet. He doesn't know it though. Couldn't get a shot off. Just short of his stick. And St. Albert will be forced to dump that all the way down. Should be icing. No call. Not having a lot of luck with the Zebras thus far. That's a head contact right there, and it will be called. Charging is the call, no head contact, so it'll only be 2-minute penalty. Face off to the left of the St. Albert goaltender. Charging penalty, first power play for the Knights. Kepler to take the draw. It's in his feet there. He's able to get it back to Bonikoski, who steps in with the shot. It's just wide of the net. Correa will keep it in, but St. Albert will get to it, and they'll send it out of the zone. Bonikoski back for it, throwing it up the wall to no one. St. Albert first to it. Noonan makes a move in the slot in front of his net. He makes it to center. And he'll get into the zone on side. Drops it for Frey, but St. Albert read that one, and they'll try and move it out of the zone. Nope, they'll fan on it, but they'll regain it and send it down the ice. Bonikoski with possession now. He'll carry it. Pushes it to players not moving. They're able to get into the zone, though, and St. Albert nearly get it out. Noonan intercepts that, but puts it on the stick of Frey. Wasn't really expecting it. It bounced into the corner. He recovers, though. And Avery down low for Frey. St. Albert pressing. They'll walk up the wall with it. Good stick checks there from Frey. He battles to try and get it back. He will. And Kepler walks loose. He brings one off the post. And St. Albert now dump it all the way down with about 30 seconds to go in the penalty. Puck left behind the net. Brady gets a little more involved than maybe he should. Pass for Gao would have been through two players. It didn't make it. Gao battling for it here. Just outside his blue line. Gets some help from his teammates. Bowman comes up with it. He'll make a move, two moves, makes a nice move around the defenseman, rings one off the post. Blast from Correa is just behind the net, and it'll make it all the way out of the zone. Something from nothing there from the Knights. Centered pass now, and the penalty is over, so St. Albert even strength. Breen able to collect that cross-ice pass. It would have been offside if he carried it in, so he chooses to dump it in. The bumper pass goes to Hender. Hender leaves it for Hudson, who will dump it in because it was out of the zone. St. Albert now regrouping. Up the hash marks. Pass intercepted by Breen. St. Albert struggling to get out of their zone here without dumping it down. Icing waved off. St. Albert will be first to it. Left wide open in front of the net. Lemab was able to get a stick on the shooter. It was a good effort or a good opportunity there for St. Albert. Campbell able to push it out of the zone. Green battling for it now. St. Albert offside, so they'll try and clear the zone. They regain control. Puck is pushed into center ice for Jacobs. He'll chip it to Campbell. Campbell with speed. Shot just wide of the net. Rebound behind the net. Main there for it. He'll center it for Breen. Breen gets a shot off just as the clock runs out for the first period. We'll take a very quick break here and give them a moment to collect themselves, and we'll start up the second. Small net repair there, and we're underway here for the second period. 20 minutes to play here in the second. Some high sticks there, no calls though. And St. Albert will try and make their way through. Intercepted by Maine though. He'll try and make his way through, but he loses the puck at center. St. Albert back the other way. Shot is over the net. Green back for it, trying to get it to Jacobs and Campbell. Jacobs able to walk through the traffic. St. Albert more concerned about the hits, but missing most of them. Maine with pressure here now. Centered pass off the goaltender. Glove down by the defenseman, and he'll send a cross-ice pass. Baker did well to corral that one with some space now. He'll send it to the point where there is no one, and it'll go all the way back into St. Albert territory. Knights will get a full change. Kepler off the bench. Puck given to Correa. He's got pressure. St. Albert battling for it. Correa able to push it forward to Reed, and Reed will chip it into the zone. Reed, Correa. Correa able to kick it down into the corner. He'll continue to pressure. It's reversed behind the net. And thrown through the middle. St. Albert end up with it at center and chip it into the zone. Correa gets taken out. That was an absolute trip. No question, no call. St. Albert shot through traffic. An excellent save from Brady. It's into his crest, and he'll hold on to it for a face-off to his right. St. St. Albert win the draw, back to the point, but it's given right to Frey. Frey moving forward. He'll get it into the zone. Able to sneak around the defender, but couldn't bring the puck with him. St. Albert pick up the loose puck, and they'll break out. Cross-ice pass neatly to Mills. Walking in, shot again into the crest to Brady, and he'll hold on to it for another face-off. St. Albert pick up the loose puck on the wall, center in front of their, in front of the Knights' net. Loose puck in the slot, too much traffic. St. Albert player is able to find a seam and get it over the left shoulder of Brady, and that'll make it 4-0. St. Albert walk away with it off the face-off. Excellent save by Brady on a very sleepy face-off for the Knights, where St. Albert walked to the net. And Brady saves the day. Should have been a 5-0 game. Campbell to take the draw. Some new forwards out there. Lamab and Correa on defense. St. Albert again able to walk to the net. Fortunate not able to get a shot off on the far wall. Campbell battling for it there. He'll chip it around the defender and can't get to it before the St. Albert defenseman. It's given to Hender. Hender will push it up the wall. Campbell will get all of it and send it into the zone. He'll give chase. Defender goes down. Hender gets to the puck first. He's pushed off it though. Loose puck in the corner. St. Albert battling there with Campbell. Gow able to knock a player down. He'll push the puck in deep. Campbell having to battle for it now. Gow in for a hit. Lamab gets the puck, and it looks like a penalty is coming to St. Albert. Roughing possibly, and it looks like the player is injured on, or at least claiming injury. I guess we'll see what comes of it. So the Knights will go on to power play for the first time here in the second period. 16:52 to play. 2-minute penalty for roughing. Puck won into the corner by St. Albert. Knights control it. Durecci wisely chooses to push the puck down to Kepler, but his saucer pass is too high. Bonikoski couldn't keep it in. St. Albert end up with the possession. Maine does a nice job to keep the puck in the zone, but it bounces to the defender. Durecci at center. He'll push it back in. St. Albert with possession again. Centered pass off of Durecci, bouncing favorably for the St. Albert player. Centered pass behind the player. Opportunity here. St. Albert able to recover as the puck is bobbled here at our blue line. Jacobs will push it forward to Maine. Kepler picks that up. He'll button hook. Sends it across for Bonikoski. Bonikoski back to Kepler. Pardon me, that was down to Maine. Directed to Kepler. Kepler with an attempt to cross ice. It's deflected high, and St. Albert will get control of it and send it out of the zone. Maine now at center for Bridges, who carries it in offside. And St. Albert will come back the other way with it. Bridges pressing now. 40 seconds to go in the power play. Bonikoski pushes the puck down but it bounces 10 feet in front of him, and St. Albert were just about able to break in with that. Reed now at his own blue line. Chips it for Bowman. Back to Reed. Reed with a bit of space going wide. He'll make a move, but it's bobbled. Bounces off of Bowman, but bobbles again, and St. Albert to collect it and send it down the ice. They'll get themselves a change. Lemab behind his own net now. 8 seconds remain in the penalty. Green at his own blue line. Chips it forward for Bowman. Bowman, puck for Bridges. He fires it high, takes a hit. Reed pushes the puck down low for Bowman. Bowman looking for an open stick, sends it back to Breen. Breen through traffic, hits the leg. St. Albert able to collect it and now carry it out of the zone. 3-on-2 ensuing here. They'll make a move around the defender. Hudson did well to push the puck into the corner, but it's come right back as St. Albert collected it. Now behind the net with it. Looking for a cross-ice pass. They find it. Stick check doesn't work. St. Albert walks in. Great save by Brady. Still in possession. Tried to center from the other side of the net. It's off a leg back behind the net. St. Albert again here in the corner with possession. Centering pass is right onto the tape. Save made by Brady again. Loose puck. Another great save. Seared into the corner. Centered in front. This time I think off of a Knight's stick. St. Albert get another shot. Brady with a big save. Campbell will take the draw left to Brady. St. Albert will win it back. Pressure ensuing. A loose puck, though. St. Albert will end up with it. No, it's onto a stick finally for Campbell. Campbell back to Correa. Pushed forward by Noonan into the zone, into the slot there. He'll give chase. St. Albert will try to turn it back the other way. It's kept in by Durecci at the blue line. Nearly fed it to Noonan there with some space, but it rolls through him, and St. Albert pick it up behind their own net. Correa with pressure. St. Albert with a centering pass. Intercepted by Noonan. And Frey will decide to regroup with it. He's got pressure. Pushed up to Campbell wisely. Campbell over the blue line, beating the defenseman. Shot from a bad angle into the glove of the goaltender. Will get a face-off to his left. 13:04 to go here. Still a 4-0 game for the visitors. One back to the point. Good shot from Bonikoski, but it's blocked by the defenseman. And pushed out to the blue line, kept in by Breen. Gal pressing for it now. St. Albert will reverse. With some room. The outlet pass blocked by Hender. He's able to keep it in, but it's right onto a St. Albert stick, and they'll make their way up, dumping it over the center line. Icing will be the call. They're going to wave it off because it doesn't make it to the line. St. Albert pressing. Puck pushed behind the net by the Knights. Green picks that up, tries to center it for Gal, but he was gone out of the zone. Didn't see the puck coming. And the Knights get another opportunity to clear the zone, which they will do. Pressure from Gal. Player goes down. He recovers the puck and nearly hits Hender with it in front. Rolls behind the net. Gal pushing his weight around there with big number 5. Hender trying to dig the puck out. He gets tied up. St. Albert will step in. Bowman challenging. He'll strip the puck, but it's rolled up to a St. Albert player. Correa pinching. He keeps it into the hash marks. St. Albert not giving up, though. They're going to make their way out of the zone, this time with some space at center. All by himself. Tries to make a move through a player. Worked for the puck, but not for the player. Nice lead pass for Maine. Maine with a shot well wide of the net. Unfortunately, it'll roll all the way out of the zone. Kept in by Correa, but given right to St. Albert. Unlucky there. St. Albert back the other way. Lemab battling for it. Point wide open. He'll have a shot at the net through traffic. It's deflected into the corner. Bad angle shot is off the bar, off the post, and goes up over the glass. We'll get a face-off to the right of Brady. St. Albert gained possession there. They choose to dump it in behind the net. Bowman will get to it first, but it's right onto the tape of a St. Albert player. Shot into the glove of Brady. He'll hold on to it for a face-off. This time we'll go to his left. Bowman will take the draw. He's got Jacobs and Main up front with him. Durecci and Bonikoski on defense. Puck in the centerman's skates. St. Albert come up with a loose puck. Shot through traffic is blocked. The rebound hits the side of the net and goes behind. It's chipped out to the blue line. Shot is deflected off the goaltender behind the net. Main giving chase. He's got possession. It's a 3-on-1. Nice pass to Campbell. Oh, to Jacobs, who gives it back to Main. The shot is just wide of the net. Great effort and great opportunity there for the Knights. St. Albert will be in offside. We'll get a face-off in front of their bench, more than likely. Nope, we're going to go cross ice. Glimmer of light there for the Knights. Nice passing play. Just got to get some shots on the goaltender. Campbell wins the face-off forward. It's back to Lemab. Cross to Breen. Breen's soft pass for Bridges. He couldn't do anything with it. St. Albert right on top of him. And loose puck at the Knights' blue line. It's chipped up the wall for Bridges. Given back to the St. Albert players. Dumped in deep. Lemab will have to battle for it again. Loose puck. Chipped forward for Bridges. He'll let it go by as the defenseman was challenging him, and it'll get out of the zone. Breen skating onto it. It rolls off his stick. Gets it forward for Bridges. Tries to chip it forward to Reed. And St. Albert will push it back to Breen. Breen lost the puck in the snow on the wall there, and St. Albert come back the other way. Lemab gets a skate on it, but didn't realize it. Shot is off the side of the net. And corralled there. Lemab wisely pushing it under the goalie's pad. And we'll get a face-off to his right. With 9:44 to play here in the first. Knights with possession. Frey trying to center for Noonan. He gets it there. And Noonan with a step on the defenseman. Chips it. Goaltender making a good save. Just got a piece of the shoulder. And the Knights thwarted again on that attempt. Great effort. Nice passing again. Correa battling against two St. Albert players. He'll come up with it and pushes it into his own corner. Nice reversal up the wall, but it's given right to the point with no pressure there. Shot is well wide of the net. There's a penalty coming to St. Albert. To Ferris for boarding, it looks like. So the Knights will go on to power play again here in the second period with 9:11 to go. It's a couple of really good efforts, team efforts to get to the puck to the net. And only the goaltender able to stop them. Kepler out to take the draw. Frey on the right and Noonan on the left. We got Durecci and Correa on defense. Kepler wins the draw to the wall. Noonan pushes it back for Correa. He throws it into the middle, and St. Albert are there. They'll throw it right down on Brady. Durecci back for the puck behind his own net. Pass off of the centerman. Bounces favorably for Correa, who was up at the blue line. And puck kept in by Durecci? I don't think so. It's called offside. And it makes it out, though. And Durecci plays it there. He'll leave it for Kepler. Now clearing the zone, they can step in. Kepler will make a move into the zone. He gets around the defender. Centers a pass for Noonan on the backhand. Couldn't get a shot off. Bounced behind the goalie there. He got enough of it to push it back into the corner. Frey battling for it. He'll try and center it, but it's into feet. It's kept in at the blue line. Correa makes a nice move there. His fans on the shot, though. The loose puck rolls to Frey. Goaltender with absolute horseshoes and in a great position. He makes the save. And St. Albert will dump it back down the ice and get a change. About a minute left to go in the penalty. Pass softly up to Correa, nearly intercepted. And Durecci will get it back and just dump it in, but it'll be icing. So we'll be back in our own zone with about 50 seconds left in the penalty. Ender battling for it. St. Albert throw it back into the zone. Breen back to Bonikoski, to Hender. Hender will step away from the wall, trying to create some space. He'll give it to Breen. Breen tries to find a forward in front of him. It splits two, and it's back the other way. Brady out to play it. 17 really trying to get there. He nearly took himself out. Still battling, though. He's able to thwart efforts to get out of the zone by the Knights. Centering pass is too far for Brody, pardon me. Could have been an interference call, but didn't get called. Hender with it now again at the hash marks. Across ice to Breen. Breen's pass is into the feet of Bowman. He couldn't get it. Bonikoski has it roll off of his stick. He'll battle for it. St. Albert back to even strength. They'll send the puck in deep. Breen up the wall for Jacobs. It's through him and kept in at the point. Shot. Loose puck taken by Bonikoski. Put to the point. Kept in by St. Albert. Bounced favorably to Jacobs, and he'll make a nice pass to Bowman, who drops it for Hender. Tries to make a move instead of dumping it in, and St. Albert are back the other way at the blue line. On an odd man rush, essentially. Not able to get a shot off. Defense are able to thwart that, but they're able to get possession again and keep it in the zone. Puck rolls to the side of the net. Correa behind his own net. Up the wall. He'll chip it to himself with some speed. He's got one to beat. Sends it in front, but there's nobody there. It does make it to Campbell on the far side, and St. Albert will push it up the wall, and Mab able to keep it in. Jacobs gloves it down to himself. He's got some space. He'll give it to Correa. Correa pushes it forward for Maine. Maine able to move it around the wall. Correa paying the price for that stretched pass. Taking one for the team there. St. Albert will send it back through all the way down, and we'll get an icing call, and we'll have a face-off back in St. Albert territory. Knights win the draw. Campbell battling for it behind the net. He'll get some help, but St. Albert are able to center a pass and make it out of the zone. Too far for the St. Albert player. Lemab will get to it first. He's pushed down, and St. Albert are going to take a penalty for holding. So the Knights will go back on the power play with 5:34 to play here in the second period. We'll get a face-off to the right of the St. Albert goaltender. Campbell will take the draw. He's got Maine and Jacobs up front with him. Lemab and Durecci here for the power play team. 2 minutes, the penalty. Jacobs tied up there. Loose puck and feet. St. Albert able to muscle their way through that and send it all the way down. Durecci with pressure. He gets the puck stripped off of him. The Mab back there will send it along the wall for Maine. Maine has a bit of room, but pressure coming. Tries to get it to Campbell. Makes a nice pass to Jacobs instead. Jacobs has it stripped off of him at the blue line. Maine trying to battle it back as Campbell went for a change. And now a loose puck for St. Albert at the hash marks, deep. Centered passes directly to Lemab. He'll chip it up to Maine. Maine's got some space. Tries to send it across for Jacobs. It was through him, and now Kapler will pick up the loose puck. He'll drop it for Breen. Breen tries to get it across ice. It doesn't happen. Kapler picks up the puck and tries to give it to Bonikoski. It's dumped into the zone. Bonikoski able to knock it down and get it forward to Breen. Breen has it roll off of his stick on a stick check, and St. Albert will send it down the ice. About a minute to go in the penalty and the power play for the Knights. Pass through the middle for Reed. Wasn't quite expecting it, but it bounced favorably to Kapler. He'll dump it in and watch it and then ask Reed to go get it. Spencer gets possession, tries to give it to Bonikoski, but it was on his backhand, and so he has bobble trouble with it. Green forced to go back for it. He puts it right on the stick of St. Albert, and it's back into the corner. Bonikoski up to Reed, rolled off of his stick. Bonikoski will recover it. Didn't hit the rafters there and is dumped in deep. Bridges will press it. Centered pass, stretch pass, wide open breakaway. And he won't make a mistake on that one. He pops it up over Brady's head, and it's a 5-goal game. So, face-off at center, we got Bowman to take the draw, Noonan and Frey on the wings. Durecci and Correa back on defense. Bowman has it stripped off of him at center, and Ferris will decide to go back into his own zone with it. He'll turn and fire it up the wing. With about 6 seconds remaining, St. Albert first to the puck. And he'll walk out as a shot. Brady with the save. Passes it back to the point. Cross-ice pass. Loose puck in front of the net. Brady able to hold on and keep it out. An early whistle there as the ref lost track of it. Saves likely possibly another goal. With 3:21 to play here in the second. Knights able to push that one out of the zone, but St. Albert regained control. Pushed off though, Bowman now over the blue line. Tries to center a pass, it's behind. Correa will zap one off of an ankle, and now Bowman will likely pick up a penalty for interference. So the St. Albert team will go on the power play here for, I believe, the first time it feels like in the second period. Which means the face-off will be down to the right of Brady. Campbell and Hender will kill the penalty up front. Breen and Lemab on defense. 3:05 to go here in the second period. Centerman battling there. Loose puck rolls to the wall, and Lemab will get hold of it and send it all the way down. St. Albert forced to regroup. Hender with pressure. St. Albert back behind their own net. No, they'll send a cross-ice pass and up to the blue line here now. Cross-ice at the blue line. Intercepted by a skate. Campbell battling for it now. Not able to get all of it though. He can't get it out of the zone. He'll continue to battle though. Centered pass goes straight to Breen, and Breen takes a moment and sends it calmly down the ice. Campbell with pressure. St. Albert up to their own blue line. Cross-ice pass. Standing flat-footed, they'll dump it in. Breen will go back for it. He'll whack it off the wall, but it's kept in by St. Albert at the point. Loose puck rolls to Campbell, and now to Hender. Hender elects to post up and then send it deep. He'll get a change. Another minute left in the power play for St. Albert. At center. Over the blue line, into the zone. The shot is deflected. Maine with possession. Nope, St. Albert take possession, dropping it back to the blue line. Shot is through traffic. But Brady able to see it, pushes it into the corner. It's back out to the St. Albert point. Shot from number 4 there with some open ice. Brady does well to hold on to that one. We'll get another face-off. with 27 seconds to go in the power play for the St. Albert team. Gal with the draw. Puck chip forward for Maine. Brody able to put a foot on it. It's 2-on-1. He'll push it forward for Gal, but he couldn't control it. It was in his feet. So no shot, and St. Albert will take possession and start their way up ice. Pass given right to Gal. He pushes the player off, but then softly rolls it to the next defender, and St. Albert will be back the other way. Correa with possession now at his goal line. He'll try to reverse. He's got double coverage now. No centerman anywhere near him. St. Albert nearly get a shot off. It's a good late stick check there. They'll push it out to the point. Point walking in. Shot is wide of the net. I think Brady got a piece of it. Centered for Gow. It's too far in front of him. But the loose puck will be battled for. And Correa there first. He'll pick up the loose puck. Kapler with another pickup. The stick check there, and it floats into center ice. Bridges rolls it to Jacobs. Jacobs goes down with a cross check. And no call. Will be icing. And we'll come back into St. Albert territory. Suppose that's the name of the game. Missed calls in both directions, so is what it is. 19 seconds to go here in the second period. Kepler will take the draw. He's got Reed to his right and Bridges to his left. St. Albert going to be waved out of the circle here. Kepler wins it cleanly back to Lemab, who shoots it just wide of the net through traffic. Bridges picks up the loose puck. His shot's off the goalie's glove. At a pretty bad angle, but Durecci able to keep it in and push it up to Reed. Bridges trying to spin and catch that puck as he's battling there in the slot. Kepler with it to Bridges. Pushed back to the point. And that will do it for the second period. We will take a longer break this time and come back for the third. Bowman has the puck bounce for him, but St. Albert will take it at their blue line as this third period begins here. Saints with a centering pass through feet, ends up at the far wall. Reed pressing there, centered pass, shot is wide of the net. Battle ensuing here, bouncing puck, probably a bit wet out there still as well, as we just got the finished product on the ice here. St. Albert back to the point. Ooh, deflected off the goalie's pad, I believe, into the corner there. And St. Albert able to keep it in. Even strength here, 19-13 to go. St. Albert walking out, not able to get a shot off. and paying the price for the effort through the slot. Bowman sneaks in and picks off the pass, but gives it away. And the shot is on the back foot. Brady ready for it. He'll jump on it. We'll get a face-off to his right. Great breakout face-off from the Knights there. Just got tied up here in the neutral ice. Kapler picks up a loose puck and he'll turn with speed. Gaining the zone, he'll dump it in. Noonan will get to it first, but it's chipped past him, and Breen stepping forward takes a hit from the big defenseman and able to get the puck deep behind the net, but St. Albert able to pull it out of the zone. Durecci puts it in the feet of St. Albert there at center ice. He'll get it back though. And off the wall right on the tape, St. Albert with a shot is wide of the net. Kept in at the point. Good pressure though from Noonan, and it's pushed out of the zone. Campbell takes a hit here at the St. Albert blue line, but Frey picks up the loose puck. Frey with some space tries to center a pass. He does. Bonikoski with a shot there off the foot of the goaltender. St. Albert able to collect it and send it to center. Bouncing puck yet again. Bonikoski able to get a stick on it. Push it forward for Hender. Hender, nice chip pass to Campbell. Campbell pushes it outside for Gal, but it's well out of his reach. And St. Albert will pick that one up and take it behind their own net. Pressure from Hender. And Campbell ends up on the stick of Gal. He'll send it back for Bonikoski. Shot is wide of the net. Penalty coming to St. Albert. Hender tries to center a pass. It's just flubbed slightly, and St. Albert picked that loose puck up. And the Knights will go on the power play for the first time this period. 17:20 to play here in the third. 5-0 the score in favor of the visiting team. Campbell will take the draw. He's got Gow on his left and Hender on his right. Lemab on the left, D, and Bonikoski right. Pass to Bonikoski is short, and he's forced to push it deep into the zone, but it's picked off by St. Albert and sent all the way back. Lemab sends it across for Bonikoski, out of his reach. St. Albert will catch it at the blue line. Should be called off, no, not offside because they cleared the zone. Lemab behind his own net with pressure. He takes a tumble as he catches an edge behind the net. St. Albert out in front, intercepted by Bonikoski, was a centering pass. Knights struggling here with pressure from St. Albert on the power play with still a minute and a half left to go in the power play. Knights will regroup now. Lemab with some space as St. Albert decide to change. Knights slowly out of their own zone. It's picked off by St. Albert. Lemab picks up the loose puck, makes a move at the center ice there, and makes a nice move around the defender, but gets pushed off the puck. St. Albert get all of it. Kept in by Bonikoski. He'll chip it to the wall as he was on his back leg there, and St. Albert will get it and send it all the way down. Brady trying to play it. Loose puck comes loose for St. Albert, who are first to the puck again. Bonikoski up to Maine centers for Breen, but it's a stick check from St. Albert, and they're back the other way. Avery keeps his man to the outside. Puck is sent all the way across ice, and St. Albert are first to it. Kept in at the blue line. Blocked by Bowman. Bowman gets a loose puck. He's held up, feeling the impact of that puck. And St. Albert will dump it all the way down as about 20 seconds left to go on the power play. St. Albert pressing again. Stripped of the puck. Pushed forward for Kapler. Kapler has it roll off of his stick as he's puck handling it in the neutral zone. Breen pushes it down to Jacobs, rolls off his stick, and St. Albert will send it all the way down as the penalty to St. Albert expires. So we're even strength now. Correa back behind his own net with the puck. Pressure from St. Albert. He'll wait and send it across ice for Jacobs. It was in his feet. St. Albert pick up the loose puck and send it back into the zone. Breen now. pressured. He gets it up the wall to Jacobs. Cross ice for Correa, who touches it forward for Kepler. Kepler will dump it into the zone. Behind the net goes the St. Albert goaltender, drops it for his defenseman, and St. Albert will come back the other way. Centered pass. St. Albert pick up the loose puck off the skate. Shot is wide of the net, bounces in front. Correa cradles it and pushes it back behind the net. St. Albert pick up the loose puck centered in slot. Bouncing puck. Correa to it again, battling for it. Pushed forward for Reed, but it rolls off his stick, and St. Albert are able to push it back into the corner. Avery reverses it, taking the hit. Rolls past Bridges. St. Albert right across in front. Great save by Brady. He didn't even know he made it. And the puck ends up underneath him. We'll get a face-off. He surely saved another goal there. Face-off will be to his right. We'll get a fresh centerman in there. Campbell will step out between Bridges and Reed. Loose puck. Spencer gets a stick on it and gets a hook. Can't get to the puck. He pushed forward. St. Albert able to keep it in. No call there. Reed with a nice stick check. Campbell able to pull the loose puck with some speed. He'll try and get around the defender. He nearly does. Pushes the puck into the corner. Battle ensues. It's rolled up the wall and chipped out of the zone by St. Albert. Duretti back for it. He'll push it off the wall for Reed. Bounces off his stick. St. Albert able to push it forward. They're offside though, as they can't touch the puck. They manage to clear the zone, and it rolls off Wren's stick at the blue line, and St. Albert will go back the other way. Reed now with a bit of space. Makes a move away from pressure, but more pressure comes. And St. Albert able to keep it in again. Bridges ends up with it, and he'll decide to ice the puck instead of moving it forward. So the puck will come straight back into the zone. Icing apparently waved off, and we'll call this face-off at center. Bowman will take the draw. He's got Noonan and Frey on his wings. Loose puck. Frey able to pick it up, but has lost the battle to Big 13 there in the neutral zone. St. Albert right to the net. Loose puck bouncing for Bowman, and he skates over it. Bonikoski's able to get it to Noonan, but it rolls off his stick, and St. Albert will send it back the other way. Bonikoski with it again with pressure. Able to chip it to Frey. Frey gets a piece of it. No icing. St. Albert first to it. They'll roll it around to open ice. St. Albert to it again. Bonikoski has it stripped off of him. McLean back the other way for St. Albert. Bowman battling him, bringing him into the corner. St. Albert walking out in front with it. Walking out in front by themselves and somehow sneaking it in short side. So that'll be 6-0 now for St. Albert. So we'll get the beach ball off the ice here and then take a center face-off. Kepler will take the draw. Gal on his left-hander on his right. He wins the draw back to Lemab, who pushes it forward to St. Albert. St. Albert with possession now. Back the other way. Missing their centering pass. Kepler will take it and drop it for Lemab. Hender able to chip it to center. St. Albert bobbled it. It's given to Kepler. Kepler's shot is well wide of the net, unfortunately, and battle ensuing. Puck on back of the net, it looks like. Hender comes up with the loose puck. He's looking for a pass, but nowhere to go with it. Sends it for Breen. It was just out of his reach. Breen able to send it deep, and then the centering passes through the slot where no one was and out of the zone. The Mab up to Hender. Hender leaves it. It's kept in by St. Albert at center. They'll dump it in. Offside is the call, so St. Albert forced to clear the zone. They do. Breen back in the zone, chips it forward for Gow. Gow makes a move, tries to hit Campbell with it and can't, but he gets it to Hender instead. Campbell now with it from Hender. Centering passes right to St. Albert, and they'll come back the other way. Gow will be first to the puck at his own blue line. Chips it forward to the St. Albert blue line. St. Albert D to D, and they'll come through the neutral zone. Bouncing puck. Pressure from Campbell and Gow. They'll get it back into the zone. St. Albert will elect to go behind their own net with it. St. Albert up to the hash marks. Centered pass is given to Jacobs, but it bounces back to St. Albert. They'll come back the other way with speed. Redden able to keep that to the side of the ice and gets the puck to Jacobs. St. Albert collected again, though, and sent it back into the corner deep. About 11 minutes to play. Avery throws a blind one in front of the net. Brady forced to come up with a big save there. And Jacobs with possession will chip it forward for Maine. This rolling puck just slipped out of the reach of Maine, and Avery carries it in offside. And so the face-off will be in front of St. Albert's bench. St. Albert with possession. They push it back to themselves in the neutral zone, but it rolls off a stick. And Lemab bobbles it, but is able to recover, get it to center. St. Albert with possession again. St. Albert elect to leave the puck. Bowman gets it. Pushes it forward for Jacobs. Jacobs with a bit of space. He'll make a move and keeps control. Tries to center it, but goes down. Off the stick of Bowman. St. Albert now picking the puck up with pressure from Bowman again. They'll skate it behind their own net and reverse now back behind their own net again. No outlet pass. They'll just continue behind their own net and throw it up to center ice. It makes it outside the blue line, and Bonikoski ends up peppering it into the bench. Maybe not on purpose. Maybe not, maybe so. Anyway, face-off will be at the circle in front of the St. Albert bench. 10:14 to go here in the third. 6-0 the score for St. Albert. Knights will push the puck forward. St. Albert will try and make their way out. The dump in is right on net, so the icing will be waved off. Bonikoski off the wall up to the blue line. That one comes out and goes back in, so that will be offside. We'll get a face-off in front of the Knights bench this time. Kepler will take the draw. We've got Bridges and Reed up front. Breen and Durecci on defense. St. Albert come away with it, and they'll carry it into the zone. Now behind the net. Centering passes off a skate. Reed able to push it to the point. Kept in by St. Albert. Back behind the net. Centering pass originally blocked by Breen, but goes right back to the player. St. Albert still pushing and shoving in there despite the whistle going. So we'll have a face-off to Brady's left. We get a new set of forwards out there. Pardon me, new centerman. Campbell will take the draw. Wins it to Bridges. Pardon me, wins it to Breen. Breen not able to get it out of the zone, and St. Albert with numbers down low now. Breen able to recover, though, gets a stick on it before it makes it in front of the net. Campbell pushes it forward for Frey, who sends it across to Noonan, and then takes a hit. And Noonan takes a big hit at center ice just as the play is whistled down on a penalty to Maine. Pardon me, to Frey, I believe. So Frey will go to the box for two. Zebra's talking as if there might be another penalty to come here. Probably reviewing the hit here at the center ice. Nope, we're going to get a slashing call as well by the sounds of it. So Frey with 2 penalties, I believe. Campbell stick checked off the puck, although he did win the battle to it. St. Albert keep it in at the point, in tight. Shot is wide of the net. St. Albert still with possession, out at the hash marks. Looking for an open stick, couldn't find it. Back to the point, pressure from Campbell. Avery steps forward to it and pushes it all the way down. He would be first to it, except the goaltender steps out and puts it right off the player's skates. Noonan will pick up the loose puck. He makes a nice move. Off the side of the net, Avery way too low for a pass. And St. Albert will make their way back the other way. Avery recovering that one at the blue line. He'll send it back. St. Albert will try this again. Onto the stick of Gal. Intercepted by St. Albert coming out of the zone. Bonikoski with a block shot, but it's kept in at the blue line. Avery blocks that one. And then the shot is wide of the net, rolling out to the blue line. Kept in and pushed deep by St. Albert. Deflected onto the goaltender off of the defender's stick. And Brady makes a nice save. He'll hold on to it. We'll get a face-off to his left. About 50 seconds to go in the power play to St. Albert. I believe they changed the call to a slash. That's probably what happened. So just the 2-minute penalty for Frey. Bowman ties up his man. Puck goes to the hash marks and back to the point for St. Albert. Bowman with great pressure, just not able to get enough stick on it to push it out of the zone. St. Albert walking to the net. Good block by Lemab. Off the goaltender's head, loose puck, side of the net. Lemab with it. He'll tie it up. He gets it from behind. Battle ensuing there. Lemab doing a good job tying it up. St. Albert now out the other side. St. Albert into the corner. St. Albert walking. Centered pass. Shot is slowed and Brady able to make the save. Still in the slot. St. Albert able to get a stick on it. Good stick check by Bowman. He'll try and get it out of the zone. It would be a hooking call in any other building, but not tonight. Shot, good save, shoulder save by Brady. Back behind the net again. St. Albert walk it out to an open man. What a save by Brady coming across the net. Chip forward for Bowman. Bowman slow to make the play. St. Albert will take possession at the blue line and try and turn it up the other way. St. Albert through the slot, turns and shoots off of Brady again. Penalty over, even strength now. St. Albert down low. Hudson with the hit, centered for Gow. Gow chips it out of the zone. Hender's going to try and skate onto it, but St. Albert will get to it first. Hender giving pressure. Oh, deflects that pass attempt. Right at the goal. Fortunately, the goalie paying attention, or unfortunately for the Knights. He'll make the save. And we'll get a face-off to his left. St. Albert win that one in their own zone. Durecci able to break that up at the blue line, at his own blue line, carries it to the other. Still battling for it there. St. Albert struggling to play it out. They finally will. And Bonikoski will get a stick on it back to center. Knights forwards trying to stay with it. St. Albert able to get into the zone. Good save by Brady off of the blocker there, pushed into the corner. Shot definitely had eyes. Battling for it there is Maine and Durecci, I believe. Yes. Kepler will push it forward for Jacobs. Tries to bumper it out. He gets hit from behind, and there's going to be a penalty there. Believe it was boarding. So the St. Albert player ejected. I believe that was a full-on hit from behind penalty right at the wall. Going up on the board is a 2-minute penalty, but it's got to be more than that unless he was given a 10-minute misconduct. Unlikely, however. I'm guessing it's a major penalty. Well, maybe it was 2 and a 10. I guess we'll never know. Well, maybe we will eventually. Face-off will be deep in St. Albert territory. Knights on the power play for at least 2 minutes. Or at least we'll have a power play potential for 2 minutes. Staying up on the board as a 2-minute penalty. So it must have been a misconduct otherwise. Knights win the draw. Kapler with it. He'll chip it down for Jacobs. Knights struggling to get it away from St. Albert here. They're staying with the battle. And St. Albert able to send it down the ice. Knights will have to regroup with 1:50 to go in the penalty. Bonikoski up to Maine. Bumper pass for Bonikoski. He carries it with speed. And to the net. And gets the loose puck nearly as a goaltender bobbles it. But unfortunately, neither Knights player could get enough on it to put it in the net. And St. Albert will send it all the way down. We'll try that again now with about 1:30 to play in the power play. Jacobs will make a move away from pressure. He'll carry it in the neutral zone. Sends it across for Maine. Maine skates onto it. Gets around the man. Tries to center to Jacobs, but it's intercepted and pushed into the corner. St. Albert will send it all the way down the ice. Knights need to set up in the zone here. Bonikoski with a big hit there. St. Albert not giving up on it, though. Centering pass is tipped away. Back to the point. Defenseman goes down. Bridges will skate onto it. He's got Maine with him. He shoots. Maine with the rebound. A big save off of that Maine shot. Campbell able to step in and pick up the loose puck. Knights get one. We're on the board. Power play goal breaks the shutout. And no one in the building happier than the Knights fans. Campbell, I believe, will be credited with the goal. Big rebound for Maine. He wasn't able to get it as the goaltender made the save miraculously, but Campbell picks up the loose puck in the slot, in the crease, and it's a 6-1 game. Bridges back there trying to get the puck away from two big St. Albert players. Sent up to the blue line and tipped forward. Right on net, so will not be icing. Puck bounces, unfortunately, and Knights are able to just redirect that shot away from trouble. Brady, unfortunately, without his stick. Correa trying to make his way up the wall. He'll push it up into center ice. Breen gave his stick to the goaltender and blocks the shot. Puck rolls just wide of the net. St. Albert with possession in the zone again. St. Albert able to walk the line. Ferris now tries a shot into traffic. And it beats the goaltender. Beats the goaltender short side, unfortunately. It'll be 7-1 now. On an unfortunate turn there in the neutral zone. St. Albert able to capitalize. Knights win the draw, but St. Albert are able to get to the loose puck. Durecci goes for it. He's got it to Frey. Frey gets it stick checked off of him. Back on the wall. Battle ensues. St. Albert jostling. They'll send it to the open man at the wall. He'll send it across. Stick check there by Lamab. stopping the one-timer on the far post with a backdoor shot. Knights get it out to center and now dump it in. No icing. It's waved off. Bouncing puck. St. Albert off of a skate, off of another skate, off of another skate, into feet. Frey with the puck. Off another skate. Pushed back into center ice. St. Albert will dump it in. St. Albert will be first to it. Oh, down goes the player. Really hard as it was a trip. Not intentional. He got his stick in his skates and down he went. So that will be a 2-minute penalty to the Knights. St. Albert will go back on the power play. Unlucky. St. Albert player up. Went down really hard. They will go on the power play for 2 minutes. Face off to the left of Brady. Kapler will take the draw. He ties up his man, and Gow nearly pulling that puck forward. St. Albert will get it. Maybe got away with a trip there. Kapler can't get it out of the zone as big number 3 Smith keeps it in. It's down the wall to number 4. Shot off the foot of Brady. Loose puck. St. Albert picked that up. Back to the point. Pass down low, ends up behind the net. St. Albert centers it. Nice block from Breen. St. Albert collected again, though. And they'll walk in. Weren't able to get a shot off. It rolls back to the point. Kept in there. Pressure from Gow. He's able to get it out of the zone. And Kapler will pick up the puck and push it forward. St. Albert now. That one getting deflected up and catching a glove at the box. They'll get a whistle and a face-off in front of the St. Albert bench. Minute 13 to go in the penalty. Jacobs will take the draw. He's got Hender on his left. He's pushed. He wins it forward, but St. Albert get possession, and they'll send it in. Deflected off a skate. It goes behind the net. Avery gets to it first, but he's stick-checked. St. Albert now with possession. Trying to find an open stick in front. Intercepted by Avery, but given right back to St. Albert. They'll put it back to the point. Point pass is flubbed. Avery will skate onto that. Pushes it a little too far out of his own reach, but gets the puck given back to him. He'll try and get it on Hender's stick, and he does. Oh, and Hender turns and fires it. And it deflects slightly, I believe. Rolling puck goes right through the goaltender. That's the way, Knights! Knights win the draw. Breen fans a little bit on that one, but the puck does the work. St. Albert will collect it, though, and try to make their way out. Waited too long for the pass. It's given to Bonikoski, but it bounces off his stick. They'll try again. Stretch pass is just wide of number 11. Got a piece of it, though, so no icing. Knights still on the penalty kill. Obviously, that was a shorthanded goal by Hender. Shot through traffic is saved. Jacobs picks up the rebound in the slot and sends it all the way down. Goaltender out to play it. Green over the blue line with speed. Makes it around the defenseman. His shot is over the net. Rolls around. Maine trying to get to it. Penalty ending. Spencer comes off the bench. St. Albert with possession. And able to walk? No, the puck rolls off of his stick. He's not able to bring it out front. Maine with pressure. He pushes the defender. Loose puck to Correa. Couldn't get enough to get it out of the zone. Campbell able to push it out to center. St. Albert flubbed one there as Bridges got a piece of it as they dumped it in. Passes across to Correa. Correa is going to go to Campbell. It's just rolls off the tip of his stick. And with about 10 seconds to play, Maine will push it to Bridges. Bridges will dump it in the zone with 4 seconds to go. And time will run out. Unfortunately, 7-2 the final score for the St. Albert team. Thanks for joining us tonight from Shell. We'll see you tomorrow night from way further west in Spruce Grove.